And we are live, everybody. Welcome from wherever you're joining us. If you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, we are streaming live to all three platforms currently. So if you are with us live, if you want to hop into the chat, we do have the chat moderated today. So let us know where you're coming from. We got Thanksgiving right around the corner. So put in the chat your favorite Thanksgiving food. Drew, what's favorite Thanksgiving food for you?
Can't go wrong with, I grew up on a pig farm, so I'm more of a ham guy on Thanksgiving with mashed potatoes and gravy.
Do you guys do a turkey or no?
Oh yeah, occasionally we'll, break with tradition and do a turkey, but we gotta stay loyal to the pigs on our farm.
There you go. I'm very traditional, except my one weird thing is I love jellied cranberries that come out of the can. Like I'm hardcore Western family, grew up on that. But if it comes out of the can and it looks like that jello-y type of cranberries, I love that stuff.
That's respectable. That's
There
respectable.
you go. Awesome. Well, it looks like we do have a little bit of a group here. We want to welcome you from wherever you're coming from. Greg saying hello to us in the chat. Feel free at any point during this webinar today, if you want to ask any questions about what we have going on, just throw it in the chat and we'll get those asked to Drew so that he can take those from there. But Drew has a great presentation for us today. Just going to walk us through some things about the BarnTalk system. We're going to talk about how the BarnTalk system works, a little bit about the 3G sunset and what that means for some of the legacy alarm systems that are out there in the world today. And then we're going to talk about the product line that BarnTools has to offer and a little bit about the pricing of all that. And we'll also talk about integration to smart controllers. So from there, Drew, I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Kelton. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys about this a little bit here. We've been doing a couple of these webinars. We really think it's a good way to kind of, learn a little bit more about BarnTalk and some of the capabilities of what our alarm system can do. We hope that, you guys can see the value and opportunities of where this could fit in with your business or your organization. And as always, we're happy to chat with you guys more about some of that stuff. So like Kelton said, if there are any questions that pop up, don't be afraid to put those in the chat section there, and we'd be happy to answer those. So I'm just going to kind of dive in a little bit, give you a little bit of a background on our company, BarnTools. Our company has been around for a few years now, and our two founders, Jim and Michael, that you'll see here, they really developed the BarnTalk alarm system from firsthand experience and knowledge in the industry, specifically the swine industry, of having the headaches around alarms where you can't acknowledge them, or they're really hard to maintain, or the biggest issue of, can I get reliable connectivity for my alarm system? So those experiences really shaped their mindset and approach to how the BarnTalk alarm system was developed. And we really feel like that's what's allowed us to be successful in our area of coming from that firsthand experience and real world knowledge of the industry. So we like to talk about connectivity a lot when it comes to BarnTalk system, because really that's the cornerstone and foundation of our product, is the fact that we have built-in connectivity. And so we kind of have like this Maslow's hierarchy of alarm systems that we talk about sometimes, where if we start with connectivity at the base, that's really the foundation of what makes our product successful. And really, you can't necessarily move to that next step of having a reliable alarm system, or even if you get into where a lot of livestock and poultry companies are heading here, of being able to have real-time visibility and real-time insights of what's happening on farms all across the country. So ultimately, if you have good connectivity and that enables you to have reliable alarms, you have that visibility, ultimately that means you're able to make decisions faster, you're able to react faster. In today's world where labor is tighter than ever, and it's tougher than ever to be able to stretch resources and prioritize resources. Being able to put that information in your growers' hands or your production team's hands is paramount. And so this can be a really good tool to help producers make those decisions and see those kind of things. So if you look at some of the features and benefits of the BarnTalk alarm system compared to a lot of the legacy alarms out there, the built-in connectivity, the 24/7 visibility, all of those are really kind of stepping up from where we are in most alarm systems today that we see a lot of growers have. So from a high level overview of kind of how the system operates and works is we have wireless sensors, and those monitor various different things. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Those sensors collect that data, send it back to our BarnTalk gateway box. And that's that connectivity that we provide and what we talk about that's so important when it comes to an alarm system. And then we send that information to a mobile app that allows you to see current conditions inside your facilities. You can set parameters and thresholds yourself for when you want to receive alarms. You can decide who's getting notifications and alarms for these different parameters. And it really puts the power of all of that right in the palm of your hands, which gives you that peace of mind of, I don't necessarily have to be at the facility or just get a phone call when something's happening. I can check that any time of the day and really, have a little bit better peace of mind of what's happening inside my facilities. So the BarnTalk gateway is really where that connectivity for our system starts. Inside our gateway box, we've got a SIM card that allows us to connect to various different cellular networks. So we're certified on all the major carriers in the U.S., the big ones being Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint. And so when you plug our box in and turn it on, it automatically searches for whatever the strongest signal is in your area, and it connects to that. And we designed this gateway box to be able to withstand livestock and poultry facilities, that exist in those facilities. I see we've got a question from Stephen. Do gateways have any serviceable parts that could go out from time to time? That's a good question, Stephen. For the most part, we don't see a lot of that. The good thing about BarnTools is that our customer support team does have the ability to remotely do troubleshooting with our system, which allows us to see different things like what is the connectivity level, what is the connectivity level of the gateway to the cellular network? What is the level of connectivity from the gateway to our wireless sensors? So it's pretty easy for us to do troubleshooting from that standpoint, which makes it a very easy, low maintenance system to have on your farm. So as I talked about a little bit with the connectivity that's built into the BarnTalk gateway, and those multiple different carriers that we're certified with, that essentially is always enabling you to have a backup connection available. You're not having to depend on a single network to provide you connectivity. We know that sometimes, whether it's with weather or other factors, that those can go down from time to time. We'll just connect to the next network that's in your area and find connectivity for your system. So when we say that, our BarnTalk system works where your phone won't, that allows us essentially saying that we just need the slightest amount of connectivity to be able to have good connection on the farm and allow our system to work. And digging into that a little deeper, Essentially, if you think about the amount of data that it takes to stream a 1-minute YouTube video on your phone, that requires broadband connectivity and lots of data to be able to do that. And if we equate that amount of data to a loaf of bread, our BarnTalk system is just sending breadcrumbs of data every minute or two to your mobile app to be able to see those conditions. So that allows us, one, to be able to have good connectivity in rural areas, and number two, it allows us to make it easy for the system to connect virtually anywhere, because we're sending those breadcrumbs throughout the day, every 1 to 2 minutes, and we transmit the amount of data, that bread loaf, in about a 30-day period. So it's very low data need to be able to have good reliable connectivity with the BarnTalk system. The other feature that we have built into our system is what we like to refer to as the heartbeat. So every 2 minutes, every single one of our gateway boxes that's deployed across our customer base is getting pinged, and we're making sure that it's online and that heartbeat is constantly happening. And so we're making sure that that gateway box is connected to a cellular network. We're making sure that the sensors, the wireless sensors, are connected to that gateway box, and making sure that everything is connected and working properly. All right. So we're testing this thing every 1 to 2 minutes. If for some reason we realize that that system is not connected or is having an issue, we'll trigger an alarm and let the customer know that. So probably the biggest application where we get questions is, well, what happens if my farm suffers a lightning strike and it knocks out some electronic components, whether that's in ventilation controllers or in the alarm system itself? There's a couple advantages to having BarnTalk. One, with our sensors being wireless, there's not necessarily wires running from all across the farm to be able to spread out an electrical strike. And number two, if our box does get struck by lightning and it has a malfunction, that heartbeat feature will pick that up within a minute or two, and we'll notice that it can no longer have connectivity or can no longer call out, and we'll trigger an alarm and tell the customer, hey, your BarnTalk system went offline. So really that can give you an extra layer of peace of mind knowing that we're testing this alarm system 720 times a day. A lot of folks will have manual procedures around testing an alarm once a month or once a week to make sure that it's working properly. We're doing that automatically. It's built into that, and you no longer have to worry about testing alarm systems, because we're doing that every 2 minutes. So this kind of gives you an idea of some of the sensors that we offer in our product line today. So the gateway box, we talked about that with the connectivity that's included. That gateway box will also monitor power where it's plugged in. So if power is lost from where that's supplied, we'll trigger a power outage alarm. And then that gateway has a backup battery that will last about 24 to 30 hours to continue monitoring those wireless sensors throughout the farm and monitoring conditions in there. So when power gets restored, that backup battery will just simply recharge itself. So that's a good way to make sure you can still monitor what's happening on your farm. The gateway box also has 2 dry contact terminals built into it. So, for example, if you have a swine facility that's a single barn, the gateway box is plugged into power, it's monitoring power, but then you have a water pressure switch, or you want to connect to your controller. If your controller goes into an alarm mode and it can alarm out via dry contact, those can easily be integrated into our gateway box to be able to pick up those notifications. But then our temperature sensors, our humidity sensors, those are very popular. Those are run off batteries that will last about 3 years. So there's some lithium-ion batteries in there. So very low maintenance from that standpoint. You just go take these sensors and hang them in your barn. and they'll communicate back to that gateway box as long as they're within a range of about 1,000 to 1,200 feet line of sight. So if you have questions on like sensor range or site layouts or stuff like that, get a hold of us. We'd be happy to kind of talk about what that looks like, and how the sensors would kind of be laid out on one of those facilities. We're going to talk a little bit more about the dry contact sensor, but that's a very versatile sensor that can be hooked up to a lot of different applications. The water meters are also a very popular sensor of ours as well. Those simply just need to be plumbed in line, and they will communicate back to the gateway to give you water flow, how much consumption is going on inside your facilities. So those are really good water meters from the standpoint that they work with ultrasonic technology, meaning that there's no moving parts or spinning turbines in there. So, if you're in the part of the country where you struggle with water quality and mineral buildup and things like that, you don't have to really worry about that with an ultrasonic water meter, because there are no moving parts to be able to break inside that. So the one thing about the batteries in the water meter is that those will last more like 8 to 10 years. And that's because that water meter housing is sealed and coated to prevent moisture from getting in there. So we can't replace those batteries like we can in the indoor temp sensors or the humidity sensors. We would have to replace the water meter after a period of about 8 to 10 years. And those come in various different sizes, anywhere from 1/2 inch up to 1.5 inches. So you can put that on individual water lines going into specific barns or rooms or different houses, or you can put it on a main line of like 1.5 inches and be able to monitor from a site level standpoint. Looks like we got a question from Tyler. Can you use the gateway to determine if power is lost instead of the dry contact? Yes. So Tyler, like I talked about a little bit, that gateway box can just plug into a 110 outlet and monitor power from that standpoint. Some folks, in the case on a lot of poultry and livestock farms, are going to want to monitor 220 power. And so we see a lot of guys will put a relay on a breaker panel. And then if you lose either leg of 220 power, that relay will convert to a dry contact. And then you can get alarmed from that standpoint as well. So the gateway will plug into 110, but with the dry contact capabilities, you can monitor 220 volt as well. Looks like there was another question that came in from Steven. Does the water meter monitor pressure loss as well? The water meter will not monitor pressure loss, but there are some capabilities for setting up alarms around low flow values. The best way if you want to monitor water pressure is to go get a simple like whisker switch or water pressure switch that's dry contact enabled, and then integrate that into either the dry contact in the gateway box or one of our wireless dry contact sensors. So the water meter, if you have flow on that, we're pulling water data off that meter about every 20 minutes. So we could set up a parameter where if that water meter has not had any flow registered for like an hour or 2 hours, we could set up an alarm where you would be able to get a notification that, hey, we're not seeing any flow from that water meter. This may be getting a little bit in the weeds, but in some cases, pigs are a little bit different from poultry, where pigs will get up in the middle of the night and maybe get a drink of water. But in poultry houses, the chickens go to sleep at night and there's no water at all. So what we do is we essentially time slice that. So if at 2 o'clock in the morning there's no water flow, we'll look at has any water been consumed at 2 o'clock in the morning the previous few days as well, to compensate for the fact that sometimes poultry is not going to be consuming water at night, and we'll adjust alarms from that standpoint. Good questions. So this kind of gives you an idea of our mobile app, and really seeing those real-time conditions inside those farms. So our sensors will talk back to that gateway box, like temperature sensors, for example, about every minute. So you're getting real-time information of what that conditions are. You can easily see what the temperature is, how much water has been consumed. You'll also see here where that temp sensor tile is yellow or orange, which means that temperature value is in the warning phase of the parameters that are set in that app. So whenever you open your app, you can see, okay, are things good? Are things getting a little bit into that warning area? If that was flashing red and was in an emergency state, we would be triggering text messages and phone calls for an alarm for that aspect. And then you can see in that other screen how each one of those sensors or tiles, you can dig in and get a little bit more information. What's been the average temperature over the last 24 hours? What has my high temperature been? What has my low temperature been? So that allows you to track that stuff a little bit more granularly. And I know that a lot of folks will track that and log that information. It's very easy to be able to do that with the BarnTalk mobile app. You can go back and look previous days of what the high temp and low temp was, and still be able to track that very easily anytime you need. So Kelton talked a little bit about smart controllers when we were kicking off here. So there's a lot of really cool technology in the industry today with different smart controllers. And we've seen customers use BarnTalk as a backup to those smart controllers. So especially if you're in an area with not great connectivity, those smart controllers are going to be doing a lot of good stuff in your facilities for controlling ventilation, things like that. But if you don't have good connectivity, then you're not really getting that visibility into what those conditions are, or maybe aren't able to take advantage of some of those features that come with those controllers. So that's the nice thing about BarnTalk, is that it can be a backup system for kind of being a watchdog on that, making sure that those are working properly, and we can bring you that real, that reliable connectivity to make sure that if there is an issue there, we'll alarm you and let you know that that there is an issue that needs to be addressed. Another question from Tyler: is there a feature where the barn manager can activate something that tells everyone the barn is empty? So with the BarnTalk app, you can essentially put the system in standby, where it would not alarm or notify people. It wouldn't necessarily today tell you, hey, the barn is empty, but you could, excuse me, you could silence those alarms to essentially say, hey, I don't want this calling me out if I loaded out my barn and dropped the temperatures down. You could silence those alarms. You would still be able to open up your mobile app and see, okay, where are temperature values at from that standpoint. If you've got water meters, there's nothing in the barn, and you're seeing that there's water being consumed and you haven't been washing, maybe you need to go and check water lines for leaks and things like that. So you can definitely still continue to monitor things even in the event of not having livestock or poultry in those facilities. I want to talk a little bit about our wireless dry contact sensor. So we know there's a lot of different sites where maybe you have multiple barns on a site or multiple houses on a site. And traditionally you would trench in wire in between all those facilities to tie back to an alarm system. But with our wireless dry contact sensor, you can get away from that and essentially still have those dry contact capabilities of hooking up to water pressure sensor, like we talked about, controllers. We also see folks put these on backup generators. So in some cases, the transfer switch of that backup generator will have an output that you can hook into our dry contact sensor, and you could get a notification if that backup generator fires up. So whether that's its weekly exercise cycle and you want to be able to see that that's happening on a weekly basis, or if that's firing up because it loses main power. There's a lot of different uses for that wireless dry contact sensor. We also see people hook these up to feed lines. So if you've got a feed system that's programmed to run for 90 minutes and then it times out, you could hook, some of those feed systems have the ability to have a dry contact output on that. So in the event that that feed line times out, it trips a dry contact. The wireless dry contact sensor would be a good solution for that, for being able to get a notification that your feed lines have timed out without having to run wire back to where your controllers or the main alarm system is sitting. Or if you have multiple buildings, you can tie those in using the wireless dry contact. It's a pretty versatile sensor from the standpoint that you can hook two different sensors up to it. It has two dry contact inputs into it. And then it also has the ability to plug into a 110 outlet and monitor power from that standpoint. So there's really three different things we can monitor with this one sensor, which makes it very versatile and easy to use across multiple different uses. I talked a little bit about our water meters earlier, but we have seen a lot or heard a lot of customer feedback from the amount of things you can learn about what's happening with water consumption in your barn. So having that ability to see not only how much water animals are consuming today, but also historically, can really lead you to be tipped off if something is happening from a health standpoint of those animals. So if historically, animals are consuming 800-900 gallons in each one of the rooms in a certain facility, and then all of a sudden that drops down a bit, that could be an early indication of maybe some health challenges starting to creep into your flock or your herd of some kind. And so we even have parameters set up where you can set, if we experience a 30% drop in a 3-day rolling average of water consumption, there could be an alert, or vice versa, where we see a 30% spike in water consumption. Does that mean I've got leaking water lines somewhere, and can address that? So different parameters that you can set up there. We talked a little bit about the low flow or no flow alarm that we could set up. We can also set up a max flow alert or notification to be set up with water meters as well. So just really being able to see that, not only real time, historically, being able to see what's been happening there can really tell you a lot about, how the animals are doing from a health and productivity standpoint. Question from Stephen on the wireless dry contact. Is there a wire that goes between the sensor and the plug-in module? If so, how long is that wire? If I'm understanding your question correctly, Stephen, so when the wireless dry contact sensor comes with essentially a 110 plug included with that for being able to monitor power with that sensor. And so the reason why that is included is, one, we want power being supplied to that sensor so that we can constantly be pulling information off of that. Because when a dry contact changes state from either open to close or close to open, we want to be notified of that right away. So that sensor is constantly sending that information back to the gateway. So that requires a little bit more power. And so we can either use it with a 110 plug, then it has a 5-volt converter that's included with it, because our sensors are only going to work on low voltage power. And so, yes, that would, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what the length of that is. It's at least 5 feet or so of lead that's on that plug that runs into the sensor. But that sensor also does have a battery included with it as well. It will last more like a year. That battery is rechargeable. So, if that's in between flocks or in between turns of pigs, you can hook those power wires back into that sensor to recharge that battery. So it can be utilized either with a power supply, or it'll use the battery power supply that's included with that. Good question. So, looking at all of the different sensors that are available, the fact that all of these are wireless from the standpoint of our temperature, humidity, the dry contact sensor, water meters, it really makes for easy setup. In a simple setup where you're using the gateway to monitor power, and let's say you have a swine facility with one barn, 2 rooms, and you need a gateway box and 2 temp sensors, you can get that installed in 30 minutes or less. You essentially plug in that communication box and go hang those temp sensors out in the barn, and away you go. So it's very easy, and we hear that from a lot of our customers who've installed this themselves, that install is very quick and simple. And so ultimately that allows you to not have to spend a whole day setting a system up on a farm. It's something that can be done very quickly. All right, so just talking a little bit about our subscription costs that come with the connectivity for our system. If a customer has one of our gateway communication boxes, we have a monthly cost of $49 a month. But let's say they've got 2 sites, or they've got a farm that has many different buildings on it, and we need an additional gateway box, either for range reaching to those sensors, or for the amount of sensors we'd put on the gateway. That second box, they just have to pay for the hardware cost of it. They don't have to pay any additional monthly cost. And then if you need additional gateway boxes beyond that, we charge an additional $19 per month for those gateway boxes. So compared to a lot of landline services out there and internet services or cellular services out there, really the BarnTalk subscription can be very cost effective from that standpoint. We've heard from a lot of customers that can get 2-year paybacks just on the monthly cost saving standpoint, and not even taking into consideration the advantages of being able to see conditions inside barns, the wireless sensors, easy setup, things like that. So really wanted to keep producers in mind when it comes to cost effectiveness of our monthly subscription. And so that's kind of what our model looks like for customers in that situation. All right, so that just kind of gives you a good idea of kind of really all the different benefits of, we talked about reliable connectivity, being able to have real-time monitoring. And then if you're a producer who's looking to automate data collection of high temperatures and low temperatures and daily water consumption information, all of that's really possible with the BarnTalk alarm system. It really enables you to have all that information at your fingertips when you want to see it, whenever you want to see it, but also if you want to collect that information and analyze it, establish trends, things like that. It really is a good tool for being able to do that. Kelton, we talked a little bit about the 3G sunset and some of the implications that we're seeing across the industries with that, on a lot of legacy alarm systems that are connected via that. There's a couple things that we've been hearing from folks. One, with a legacy alarm system that utilizes touch tone acknowledgement for alarms, as the cellular networks shut down 3G networks and upgrade to 5G networks, it changes the frequency of that touch tone acknowledgement. So it's kind of moving from an analog to a digital version of touch tone acknowledgement. And we've heard from a lot of different customers that they were no longer able to acknowledge alarms. They physically had to go to the barn every single time they got an alarm, whether it was something major, or in which case, it's good that they're going to the barn to check on that. But even if it was something where, like in Tyler's example, where the barn is empty and I didn't put the alarm in standby mode, I'm 30 miles away from the barn and I'm starting to get a low temperature alarm, I have to physically drive to the facility and disable that alarm or acknowledge that alarm because the touch tone acknowledgement has gone away. Other customers have told us that they're dialing, the dialer on their legacy alarm system simply just won't call out anymore. In which case is leaving you at a lot of exposure from not being able to receive an alarm system. So as we kind of talked about at the beginning, where connectivity is the foundation of a reliable alarm system, if you don't have that connectivity, you're not going to get alarms, and you're not going to know when issues arise on your farm. So those are some of the issues that we've seen with the 3G networks going away. I know several carriers have already shut those down in certain areas of the country. And some here are essentially at the deadline of the end of this year, where they will be shut down. Definitely have seen a lot of interest from folks and a lot of success of producers putting BarnTalk in due to that 3G sunset. The connectivity we utilize is able to work on these new network 3G, 4G, 5G. So, we've got 15 to 20 years worth of technology built in to that BarnTalk gateway box from a connectivity standpoint. So that really has been a good way for producers to solve that 3G sunset issue by utilizing the connectivity and the wireless sensors that come with BarnTalk to be able to be able to get a better connectivity for their alarm systems on their farms. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to throw them in the comment section here. We'll be happy to talk to those to you guys. I threw my contact information up here. Always happy to chat with you guys if you have questions about any of this stuff. You can text me, call me on that phone number anytime. Be happy to visit with you more.
Awesome. I don't see any more chat and anything else. Oh, just kidding. Just when I said that, it pops up. So Steven's got a question for you there.
Yes.
If a farm has multiple gateways, can those be seen on the same screen during remote access?
Yes, absolutely. So when you open up your mobile app on kind of the home screen, the first thing you're going to see is all of the gateways that you would have access to, and whether that's 1, 2, 12, there's really no limit on the number of gateways that we can have on a mobile app. So the same thing goes for call trees. For each individual gateway box, you can set a customized call tree for who's going to receive alarms, who can acknowledge those alarms. The same thing is true for there. So I see Kelton pulled up his BarnTalk app here on the screen. In his case, he's just got the one gateway box that is monitoring his house. But if I could give him access to the gateways that I've got as well, and he would be able to see all of those right on that screen.
Yeah, my barn is a terrible example because I'm not a farmer. So right now I am monitoring my cat that lives out in a shed. So that's about as much data that we're going to collect. But I just wanted to pull this up in case there are any questions about the app portion as well. If you do have any questions, throw those into the chat and we can address those. But I just wanted to pull that up so you can kind of get a look and feel of what that looks like, where you can see all of my sensors. Here in Idaho, it has been chilly. So it reflects here pretty clearly. We've been in 12 degrees in the last couple of hours. So pretty cool to see that in real time.
Yeah. And one thing that we get questions occasionally from folks around the dry contact tiles, Kelton, if you go back to your main screen with all the different tiles. So you can see here, Kelton's got a temp sensor and a humidity sensor that he's got connected to his gateway box. And then you see 2 tiles for dry contact. Those are the 2 dry contacts that are built into that gateway box. So, right now those are registered as open, but if you open one of those tiles up, Kelton, and you go over to manage thresholds, if he were to enable those threshold settings there, you can set these up to either be normally open or normally closed. So that kind of gives you some different options when you're hooking up different things, whether it's a controller that is alarm output is normally closed, then you can set your notification to be notified when it's open. And if it's coming out as normally open, you can get notified when that dry contact is closed. You also have the ability to decide whether you want to be notified via phone call and text messages, or if you would rather just have a push notification sent to you for those dry contact sensors. So even further than that, we give you the option if you want to be notified immediately if that dry contact changes state from open to close or close to open, or if you want to set a delay on that as well. So that's all, easily adjustable and set up inside that mobile app. So really gives you a lot of options there. If you go back to your temperature sensor, Kelton. Oh, now you're getting an alarm. your dry contact is switched out.
I better turn that off. I'm gonna get a phone call in the middle of this. So
yeah,
it works, everybody.
Yeah. If you go to that temperature sensor and look at the different thresholds that you can set on temperature. So what you guys can see there is that there's actually 2 different levels of temperature thresholds you can set, both on the high side and the low side. With a warning threshold, we're just going to send a push notification to you and let you know, hey, temperature's starting to creep up or temperature's starting to drop in your facilities. And then when you get to the emergency level, we stop messing around and we'll send you a text message. And then within a couple minutes, we'll start triggering a phone call sequence going down that call tree and letting you know, hey, temp 3 sensor is reading 95 degrees. At which point, if you opened up your BarnTalk app, you would see that temp 3 tile would be flashing red and you would be able to acknowledge that. So, really gives you a lot of capabilities and control over what those thresholds are when you want to be alarmed for different aspects.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, I don't see any other questions in the chat, and I think that we covered a lot today. So if you do have any questions, what's a good way to contact you, Drew?
Yeah, I would say shoot me an email or give me a call. I don't know can you still see my screen there with my contact info up there?
Let me throw that back up.
Yeah, give me a call, shoot me an email. Always happy to chat with you guys if you have any questions here. And yeah, would be happy to talk to you more about BarnTalk.
Awesome. We did push this webinar as Whiskey and Webinars, and we haven't forgotten. So we're going to go back. We'll look at those who attended today, and we'll draw a name out of the hat, and we'll be in touch as well with the winner of that little promotion we ran. So appreciate your time this afternoon. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day and a great weekend.